Welcome to the US KISS Vinyl Reference YouTube channel. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Alright folks, welcome back to the next installment of the US KISS Vinyl Reference. I am your host, Mike Stone. Only one here. So, last week you saw the top 20 rarest KISS LPs, US KISS LPs, I should say. And I not so subtly hinted that this week we would be looking at the top 20 KISS 45's, the rarest. So that's my plan for this episode. So if 45's are your thing, this is your episode. So go ahead and get yourself ready and comfy and whatnot, and I will see you in a minute. Alright folks, welcome back. So, as I said, we're going to be looking at the top 20 rarest US KISS 45's in this episode. And like I said before, it was a Facebook post that I made on the US KISS Vinyl Reference page. That's still a mouthful for me to say. Anyway, it was a Facebook post that I made looking for suggestions for future episodes. Come on, Mike, learn how to talk. And because, you know, I'm already up to the 2000s in the catalog, so records are running out quick. So if I keep doing episodes on per release, you know, I've got 3, maybe 4 episodes left. So I need to come up with some ideas for future episodes. So I made that post on Facebook. You know, I've got a couple of ideas rattling around up in my head already, and some have made some suggestions for episodes, and great suggestions. This was one of them, kinda. And you know, that Facebook post, I still pay attention to it. So yeah, if you have an idea for an episode, absolutely go to that Facebook page, throw a comment in there or a question. I am open to questions. Maybe get a little cluster of them and make an episode like I don't know. I don't want to say viewer's choice, but a viewer's questions episode. For some reason, I'm having trouble finding words today. You know, 43 years old and spoke English my whole life, but yeah, words just, they're not coming out. So yeah, head over to Facebook if you got a suggestion. I mean, you can leave stuff like that in the YouTube comments. I'm not going to guarantee that I'll see everything. I mean, I do see comments, but you know, I don't always get notifications that somebody has commented, so yeah, it could get overlooked, you know. So I think that's all the house cleaning that I got, as they say. So I can't think of any other real news in the world of collecting vinyl other than I'm not sure if I've talked about it on the last couple of episodes, but recently there's a Dynasty reissue, limited picture disc, and then a standard edition colored LP. So Other than that, nothing real exciting. So how about we get into 45's now? So again, like the last episode, which was the top 20 rarest LPs, which was actually what was suggested, I kind of threw in this rarest US 45 thing on my own, just a kind of a sister to it, I guess. And I'm going to follow pretty much the same format. I've got some to show. I got some that I don't have that I'll throw images up for. I've actually got a lot more 45s that I don't have on my list than I did LPs, so I'll be throwing up more images than the last episode. But again, we're going to start from number 20 and work our way up to number 1. And I mean, let's be honest, if you're watching this, you probably know what number 1 is. I mean, we all do. It's not a secret, and unfortunately, I will not have an example that I'll be able to hold up for number 1. So it is what it is. You know, maybe someday I'll get lucky and find it. Maybe someday I'll get lucky and win the lottery and, you know, maybe charm one of the owners out of it, but let's not blow our load before we start. So, all right, so number 20 is Strutter 78 back with Shock Me, and the variation in question is on this camel label right here. So this label was pretty much done by April, May of 1977, and we're looking at an April 1978 release here. So it's definitely an oddball. So you can see the Casablanca logo up above does not say Casablanca Record and Film Works, which is usually what this 45 comes on. You know, that from April or May of 1977 onward, it was a Casablanca Record and Film Works label. So yeah, this is kind of an oddball that it ended up on a label that was out of its time frame. So, and it is fairly rare, but it can be found. But I wouldn't see it on eBay every day, but I have seen a copy or two now over the years. So yeah, if you can find something like that, that's a good start to your 45 collected journey, I think, as far as rare stuff goes. All right, number 19. So, kind of like the Strutter 78, here we have Paul's Solo 45, also on a camel label. And like I said before, this label was pretty much done by April or May of 1977. And this is a September 1978 release. So, and it seems like they come from the same pressing plant. So maybe that plant just had a little stockpile of old labels that they decided to use up. All right. Number 18, I do not have a copy to show, but It is a promotional copy for Tears Are Falling, and the copy that I have in my rack, I'll throw a picture up here. Take a look at the text on the bottom and notice that it's white. Alright, so now the copy that I'm talking about here in question, a buddy of mine actually showed me, and I'll throw it up here. You can see that the text at the bottom is yellow. And I have seen several promo copies on eBay for Tears Are Falling, but I haven't seen that yellow text yet. So that's a kind of an oddball there. Alright, now number 17, I'm sorry. I'm looking off of my list here on my computer screen. You know, I've got my look screen, I've got my camera, and then I've got my list, and everything's kind of in the way. So, alright, number 17 is Strutter 100,000 years. So, here is the A side for Strutter. And then we have the B side for 100,000 years there. And the reason this is so rare is kind of perplexing, but there is a variation of this 45 that has 100,000. It's typed out wrong. It's missing a 0. And that is actually the more common version of this 45. So I'll put the two of them up close, or up next to each other, so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, the misprint one is actually more common than the correct one, so that's one to be on the lookout for. All right. Next up is number 16. It is a live studio 45 for Rock and Roll All Night. It's the Alive release, not the Dress to Kill release that had Getaway on the back. So I'll throw the image up here. It's a reissue on a Filmworks label. And there is also a reissue of it with a plant number, but that seems to be a little easier to find than this Filmworks label here without the plant number. So that's one to keep an eye out for. Really, any Filmworks label reissue of an older 45 that was from the blue label period, it's worth picking up if you can find it. Alright. Speaking of Filmworks reissues, we get to number 15 with Shout It Out Loud and Sweet Pain. And this is also a Filmworks reissue. If you remember correctly, this came on a blue label originally. So this is a pretty tough one to track down. I've only seen a handful of these, and I'd been looking for quite a while when I got this one, so not easy to find. Alright, next up is a variation of I Was Made for Loving You, backed with Hard Times. And it is on a Filmworks label, like so. But when we go in, you can see at the bottom it says manufactured and marketed by Polygram Records and all that. And it's got a number 72 on the left, which is your pressing plant number. And so when I Was Made for Loving You was first issued, it was on a Filmworks label that had a Sunset Boulevard address for Casablanca instead of Polygram. So This is a not very common 45 to find. Now there is a polygram reissue that has "I Was Made for Loving You" and "Rock and Roll All Night." That's a lot more common to find than this reissue with "Hard Times" on the back. Alright, and number 13 is a promo copy for "Let's Put the X in Sex." Now, there are two different promo copies. There's a regular copy that comes in a picture sleeve. It has the album version of the song. That one's easily found. This, however, has remixes on it. So you can see that one says "Let's Put the X in Sex," the Hot Urban Mix. And then on the flip side here, "Let's Put the X in Sex," the Hot Rock Mix. This one is a wee bit tougher to come across. So if you have that in your collection, thumbs up. Now, most of these that I show are going to be reissues. A few of them are going to be variations of a first issue. So, but and don't sleep on something just because it's a reissue. A lot of times those reissues will have equal or higher value than a first issue. Alright, next up is one that I don't have in my possession, so I will throw it up here. It is a copy of Shandy backed with "She's So European." And it's got a Filmworks label with the Sunset address and a plant number 19. But I want to draw your attention over to the right hand side of the label. Underneath the catalog number, you'll see in parentheses it says OC405. Normally there's a normal 19 version that says like NB 2282 or something like that underneath in parentheses. I'll throw them up here next to each other. So the one on the left hand side of your screen is the rare one with the OC405, and the one on the right side of the screen is the more common one. So that's one I'm on the lookout for all the time. Alright, next up is number 11. We've got Flaming Youth back with "God of Thunder." And this is a reissue on a Filmworks label. And it has a plant number 19 there along the side. And then let's flip it over for "God of Thunder" here. There we go. So originally Flaming Youth came out on a camel label and it had a picture sleeve. By the time this reissue came along, which would have been between 1979 and 81, it just got a regular Filmworks sleeve. So, alright, number 10 follows the same pattern as the Flamin' Youth, but it is "Hard Luck Woman" backed with Mr. Speed. It's on that same reissue label with a plant number 19. And a lot of these, if you do see one, it'll be, the title will be cut off somewhere by the spindle hole. Luckily My Hard Luck Woman is pretty pretty clean. And I had another version of that Flaming Youth that was, the spindle hole got down into the title pretty good, and then I ended up coming across this one that was set a little better. All right, and another reissue for number 9 is Christine 16 back with Shock Me, and it is also on that label with a number 19 off to the side. This is a not very common version for Christine 16 Shock Me, and to be honest, I didn't know it existed until I saw it on eBay. So now there was a very, very great book by Henk Van Zandt that was put out years and years ago that dealt with worldwide 45s, and for the longest time I didn't have a copy of that book, so, and I didn't collect 45s for a long time. So when I got into them, I was just kind of going blind. I didn't have a reference on what was out there, so to speak. So I eventually found a book after I started collecting 45s, and you know, it gave me a better scope of what was out there. And then doing my own research, I found more 45s that weren't in the book. So it was a great reference to help me get started with, for sure. But I think this is in the book, but I have only seen one other copy of it, so that's a good one to find if you're out and about. All right, next up is one that I don't have and I'm on the look for. It is Peter's Solo 45, and I'll throw it up here. It is on a camel label, just like the Strutter 78 and the Paul 45. You know, this was originally issued in the time frame that would have fit the Filmworks label, and for some reason it got that early camel label. This one is harder to find than the other labels that are like that. From the Solo set, you have Paul, Ace, and Peter that were reissued on a camel label, and Peter is by far the hardest to find. So that's a good one if you can get it tucked away. Alright, and next up is Come On and Love Me and Getaway, and forgive me for looking around here, but I've got to pull up my folder here because I don't know exactly how to describe what I'm getting at on the variation. And so I'm going to throw it up here, and I'm going to first train your eyes over to the right hand side where it says stereo. Alright, and now I'm going to put both of these up side by side, so the one on the left is the rare one and the one on the right is the more common one, and you can see some other differences between the labels, you know, the font of the text and all that. So yeah, this Come On and Love Me that's on the left hand side, it's a pretty tough one to come up with. So, and yeah, I don't have one yet. All right, and next up is Rock and Roll All Night and Getaway, and I opened the wrong damn folder. There we go. And it's kind of the same layout as that Come On and Love Me, which you see right here. And I'll put it up next to the more common version. Again, on the left is the common, or the rare one, and on the right is the common one. And you can see again that there's a difference in the font of the text. And then on the left hand side for the rare one, if you go to the left of the label, you'll see that there's a gap between the KISS logo and the text. And then if you look at the more common one on the right, you go to that left hand side, there's no gap. So that's another one that I'm on the hunt for. Alright, and then next up, we're at number 5, and I actually have one to show. This is a reissue for Beth, backed with Detroit Rock City, which originally came out on a Camel label, and then it got reissued on a Filmworks label. It got reissued again on a Filmworks label with the Sunset address and a plant number. And then come to find out, there's yet another reissue on the Filmworks label, and it's got a polygram address at the bottom and the same plant number. So that's one I didn't learn of until the last year or so. So I was able to make a trade for it, and I think we both felt pretty good about the trade. So alright, next up is a reissue for Detroit Rock City, backed with Beth, on a Filmworks label, which I have only seen pictures of. I've not seen an actual copy of it. I don't have a copy, but I'll throw it up here on the screen. And yeah, it's on a Filmworks label, and if you look over to the right hand side of that label, you'll see that it's a A side instead of a B side. So it'll say NB 863, and then you look underneath in parentheses, it'll say NB 863 AS. That means it's the A side. So usually, I mean, by then the single had been flipped and Beth was the A side. So that's a rare one for sure. It's one I'd like to get my hands on one day. Alright, top 3. So we know what number 1's going to be. I know what number 2's going to be. I'm not sure you all know yet. Number 3, a couple of you might have an idea of what it is, but I'm fixing to tell you anyway. So there's a promo copy for Shout It Out Loud. There's a promo copy that has the regular single mix on it. And then, come to find out, there's another promotional copy that says LP version cold ending. If you look right there above the title, Shout It Out Loud, look up above it to the left, underneath where it says side A. So that one has a running time of, I can't remember now, 2 minutes and 50 seconds, whereas the regular single mix has a running time of 2 minutes and 38 seconds, I believe. There's a regular promo that has the single mix on it and the running time of 2:38, and then there's this cold ending promo here. And all that means is it's the version off the LP, so it doesn't fade out at the end like the single mix does. Very, very tough 45 to find. I've only seen less than a handful. Very, very rare. I know several people that are still on the lookout for this one. So that cold ending promo is probably one of the hardest promos to find for 45s. if not the hardest. I think so, yeah. All right, number 2. So, I don't have number 2, and I definitely don't have number 1. So, number 2 is a copy of Let Me Go Rock and Roll, backed with Hotter Than Hell. And some of you are scratching your head going, that's number 1. Well, guess what? Let Me Go Rock and Roll, backed with Hotter Than Hell, on a Filmworks label with a plant number. This thing is stupid rare to find. I've only seen pictures, and I think it was the same damn 45 that I've seen pictures of, across different platforms. Very rare to find. So, if you have that in your collection, that's a good one to find. And then we get to number 1. And, gee, I wonder what that one is. It is Let Me Go Rock and Roll, backed with Hotter Than Hell, on a blue label. Now, I don't have a really good scan of the B-side for the blue label. And even if I did, I don't know if I would throw it up on the screen to where it's nice and big. So I nicked the 45 image from an eBay listing that a buddy of mine had a few years ago that kind of, it shows everything, but it's kind of compressed. So, but this is the hardest to find 45. US, worldwide, however you want to put it. So, I believe this is the hardest KISS 45 period to find. And so the story is that there are, 4 known copies now. For a while it was 3. So there are 3 copies that are in the hands of private collectors that are documented for sure. And there is a copy in the KISS Museum out in Vegas that I believe is broken. Am I saying that only 4 copies exist? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's what I'm saying I know of that exists. People that have come forward with having a copy. There is some paperwork that our good friend Julian Gill over at the FAQ had dug up that showed a royalty statement for 125 copies of the single back in January of 75. So that's the only real evidence, I guess, would be the word I'm looking for, of how many were pressed. There could have been more than 125 pressed, but I'm really not sure of that, because where's the other 121 copies? I could see, 30 or 40 of them being destroyed over the years, but, there are, it does not come up on eBay. Only twice that I've ever seen in my life, and I didn't know the first one was coming, but I knew the second one was coming. So I am able to verify that the 3 copies exist that are in the hands of private collectors. I do know the owners of all 3 copies. I have had more than one person send me a picture of the copy that's sitting in the museum in Vegas, so I know it exists. Other than that, the only way anyone's going to find one probably is rooting through those unorganized 45 boxes in flea markets and record stores. So, if you can get a hold of one for $2 or whatever, you've got an $8,000 45 in your hand. So, it's I think it's worth the risk. But yeah, that's that's number one. And like I said, anybody who's watching this knew what number one was going to be. There was no question. So, but that one takes care of the top 20 US 45s, the rarest. And it's quite a bit shorter than the episode for the LPs, but anyway, I thank you for sticking with me on this one, those of you that stayed, and I'll catch you on the next one.